I happened to check out the Karrion Kross interview just today, a couple hours ago, the Ariel Hawani interview, and he came across as just himself, natural, being authentic, and I think that's what he needs to be going forward. It's just his authentic self with Scarlett, and dropping the whole theatrics of his character, dropping the darkness of his character, just dropping all the extra stuff that's not needed no more for Karrion Kross. I think his potential right now is being wasted. And it's not just the fact that he is in the top 5 of merch sales, because that right there is already a sign to give this man a push. But I think Triple H right now is being stupid by wasting Karrion Kross, not using him to his fullest potential. And what does his potential look like, you may ask? Well, let's start off the fact that this guy is very skilled in mixed martial arts. He can fight, he can box, he can do all the fighting and scrapping. Okay, he can kick some ass. That's one thing. Another thing is he can talk. He can cut a promo. He can turn up to a different tone. Okay, he can be very calm, cool, collected. Then the next minute he can be fierce, aggressive, tense. Um, he can go from 1 to 10. I've noticed. Like, he can turn up the heat when he needs to, and that's what makes a good performer. Those are the best performers, in my opinion. If you ever heard an Eddie Guerrero promo, he went from 1 to a 10. And those are the best wrestlers, in my opinion, that when they cut a promo, yeah, they can be a little goofy. They can be funny. They can be comical. They can be calm, cool, collected. But then they have that ability to make the switch, turn up the heat, turn up turn up the knob a little bit. And that's what Karrion can do. But if you give him the chance, if you give him the time, then he will show everybody that he's that dude. Now, I don't know about him winning Money in the Bank per se, but that could work. And that's definitely, with him holding up that briefcase, that definitely gave me some ideas. You know, I don't think it would be a bad idea to give him that briefcase to see what he can do. You know, I'm not too. Here's the thing, right? I'm not too a fan of Money in the Bank holders. Why? Because they always lose. When you hold that Money in the Bank contract, you go on this losing streak. Then all of a sudden you win the world title. So I don't like the fact that a Money in the Bank holder, they lose a whole bunch of matches. They're made to look weak. They're made to look like a loser before they win the world title. I don't like that way of booking a Money in the Bank winner, because that's what I've been so used to as a viewer, seeing this guy win Money in the Bank, but then he goes on Raw next night, he loses on SmackDown, loses in pay-per-views, and it's like, then you don't want to see them cash in anymore because they keep on losing. So with Karrion Kross holding that Money in the Bank, that can definitely be interesting, because he can be the one that teases a cash in a very snakish way, playing mind games with the world champion. Uh, you know, he can do the whole little TikTok thing where it's like, time is ticking for that world title reign. Before I come in, cash in, I take everything away from you. You know, you could do that with Karrion Kross, right? And one of the things I heard from his interview was what he said about Logan Paul. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, listen, this guy don't like Logan Paul at all. I can tell. But he sees why they bring in Logan Paul and why they use him. He's one of the viral people of social media that can garner more attention, get more fans into the products. And one thing I did agree with Karrion when he says that wrestlers can go viral too. And I do believe they can go viral, but it's not every time they do. But it's got to be the right circumstance that they go viral. But Karrion Kross, he proved that he can go viral. The promo that he cut after WrestleMania, that went viral. That had everybody talking. That everybody, talking about his potential. He needs to be pushed. He needs to be elevated, all that. And I agree. Now, I was watching him on Main Event the other day. He was facing Tyler Bate on Main Event. Mind you, this guy came out. The fans were cheering him. The fans were giving him and Scarlett a babyface reaction. And I was like, damn, that's new. I never ever heard Karrion Kross ever getting cheered. This could definitely work. But it made me realize that Karrion and Scarlett, they're great together. You can never separate Scarlett and Karrion. Like Lana and Rusev, you can separate them all the time. It doesn't really matter. But with Karrion and Scarlett, that's a special case of those two are just better off together, seen on TV, doing their thing. And in a way, Scarlett completes Karrion's character on TV, But you would expect them to have that chemistry because they're husband and wife. So that is expected. But maybe this guy can get cheered and be a babyface, but in a unconventional way. I would just drop his whole TikTok gimmick, drop the whole darkness of his character, and just let him be him, but turned up to a new level. And that's what he mentioned in interviews, that, authenticity is missing and the people are starving for authenticity. And yeah, a lot of us are. We want to see wrestlers be more authentic, be more real to who they are. Because at that point, it's easier to connect, right? So when it comes down to him getting this push, now is the perfect time to do it because we're in post-WrestleMania season. Usually during this time, wrestling, the WWE is going through a slow period where they don't got a lot of momentum. They just don't. They're not as interesting. They're not pulling out their heavy hitters. They're just not booming at that time. And it's dead right now. It really is. Wrestling overall is dead right now. Ain't nothing really going on except John Cena's retirement tour. But there's nothing really catching on fire right now. Because I think a lot of us are just fatigued with the usual guys in the main event scene. The same old main event guys that are already established, like a CM Punk, a Roman Reigns, a Seth Rollins, a Gunther, a Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes. It's like we've seen them already. We know who they are. We know their character, blah, 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 blah. It's like a CM Punk don't need nothing. You don't gotta do nothing with CM Punk. All he gotta do is just show up with his music, and boom, you can make something happen. You don't need to do anything with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns can just show up anytime music hits, boom, make something happen. Same thing with Randy Orton. Same thing with a Cody Rhodes. We've seen most of what they can do, and they've already gotten the best out of those guys, if anything. You know, guys like Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Drew McIntyre, and they're so heavily involved in the main arcs and stuff. But we need newer faces. I think the crowd is hungrier for newer faces like Karrion Kross to break out and for him to be elevated to a new level. That's what people are mainly looking for. At the end of the day, we're looking for new faces. That's why Jacob Fatu is getting over so well, because the audience wants to see newer faces. They want to root for new wrestlers. They want to see different names in the scene, Braun Breaker included. Braun Breaker, Jacob Fatu, those are the two top prospects that are going to blow up humongously next year, But now is the time to push Karrion Kross. Now's the time to do it. There's no better time to do it. Because, okay, we're on the road to SummerSlam, but usually by like after WrestleMania, you got May. Those months of May and June, they're like the slow period where nothing's happening. It's dead. That's the perfect time to establish new names. That's the perfect time to push the talent that is been in catering for a while on the road to WrestleMania, that has been getting less TV time. Now is the best time to give them some opportunities and see what they can do. Now that's a perfect time. Listen, the period after WrestleMania, we're talking from May to July. Those are the best months for, in my opinion, for them to try out new names, push new talent, and give them opportunities, give them more TV time, work on establishing their name. Because once you go into WrestleMania season, you don't got time to try out new names. You don't got time to give out new opportunities and new names, because you're not trying to lose ratings with the lesser name. Like on the road to WrestleMania, you can't just all of a sudden want to push a Tyler Bate and give him a bigger spotlight. It's not going to work, because the WrestleMania season, you want to see the bigger names. You're going to have more interesting stuff go on. Things are going to pop, right? And the bigger names is what's going to make shit pop. It's what's going to get people interested, is the bigger names that, what are they doing? What's CM Punk doing? What's Seth Rollins doing? What's Roman Reigns doing? What's John Cena doing? What's Randy Orton doing? What's Drew McIntyre doing? What's Cody Rhodes doing for WrestleMania? Y'all gonna care more about that. You wouldn't care what Tyler Bate is doing for WrestleMania. No one cares. You wouldn't care what an Andrade is doing, or Carmelo Hayes, because they're not established yet like those guys are. They're not there yet. They're just getting their feet wet. They're in the background. They're mid-carders. You did nothing with them last year, post WrestleMania season. You had from May to July, all those months building up to the next year's WrestleMania to give them something, to give them some type of name, to give them some type of traction. With Karrion Kross, you can't wait all to next year. You can't wait to Royal Rumble or WrestleMania just and all of a sudden say, oh yeah, we're going to give Karrion Kross a push. No. The months of May through July, after SummerSlam, then Survivor Series, then on the way to Royal Rumble, man, those are the best months to push guys like Karrion Kross, to build up his name and give him more traction. So when next year's WrestleMania rolls around, they'll have a bigger name, especially if the crowd fucks with them. If the crowd is rocking with them and they're over, that's even better. You know, they'll have a bigger name and they're more likely to get on the show. So the WWE is dead post WrestleMania season. Nothing interesting is really going on. That's where they clean the slate, they restart, they go back to the drawing board basically, and that's what they got to do. Technically, they had to go back to the drawing board because WrestleMania 41, it just did not hit it. You know, it wasn't hitting. It wasn't really cooking at all, just being honest. So now basically they have to start over. But in that period, you want to push newer talent, give them a chance. Why? What do they got to lose? They lose nothing by investing in Karrion Kross, especially if the fans want to see more Karrion Kross. Then it's like you're not losing anything. You're not really risking much around those periods where the WWE is dead. There's no interest. There's nothing going on. There's no heat. There's no momentum. There's more momentum like the build up to SummerSlam and to War Games and the Rumble and Mania season. But after that, May, June, July, you got to kind of start over and rekindle, restart some things and try out new talent, give them more opportunities, see how they fare, see how they do, you know, with more opportunities and more TV time. At that time, you got to establish a new name. So they feel more important going into next year's WrestleMania. And that all depends if the fans are rocking with them going into Mania. But with Karrion Kross, he has a stronger case because the fans are on his side. Here's what I would do, right? I would throw him in a feud, just a simple, just a straightforward feud with Gunther. I would put him in the ring with Gunther, like whatever their next Saturday night's main event show is in July, I think. Yeah. Put him and Gunther in the same ring. And why I say that, it's simple. Karrion Kross could want to prove that he is still a dominant entity like he was from NXT, a dominant, unbeatable champion, same as Gunther. Gunther was an unbeatable, dominant champion in NXT UK. For over 800 days, he was the NXT UK champion. At that same time, Karrion Kross was NXT champion, and he was unbeatable, undefeated, all that. But the difference is Karrion Kross lost his dominant streak, lost his way. Gunther did not. Gunther carried on that dominance into the main roster. He was champion for 80% of his career so far. A dominant intercontinental champion, a dominant world heavyweight champion. And Karrion Kross could be like, look, you've been the most dominant champion of this era. And I'm trying to get my stuff back. I'm trying to get my heat back. I'm trying to get my dominant streak back. I want to be the man I was in NXT, but elevated, better here on the main roster. So he could challenge Gunther to a straight up one-on-one match. And, you know, in order for me to get my dominant streak back, in order for people to look at me the same, how they viewed me in NXT, I have to beat the most dominant champion of this era, and that's Gunther. Straight up. That should be the storyline. I wouldn't even waste no time. Put him in a match with Gunther. Guarantee you the fans would be all over for Karrion Kross. They would be cheering for him against Gunther. And that would give Gunther something to do before he got to face Goldberg at SummerSlam. Because we need to get more one-on-one feuds, non-title feuds with Gunther anyway. It's like every time this man's in a feud, it's always for a title. It's always for a championship. It's like he can never be in just a non-title feud. You know, so this can be a very interesting non-title feud if they were to book it. But like, I'm just putting the idea out there because if you're looking to establish Karrion Kross, what better way than to put him in the ring with a bigger name than Gunther? Gunther has already established himself. Karrion Kross is still working on doing that. So for his character, it would be the best thing for him to fight Gunther and try to prove himself again and gain back his dominant streak. Gain back his aura that he's lost in NXT. Now, obviously, he wouldn't beat Gunther, but he would be very close in beating him. But that match would be enough for him to gain more traction with the audience, you know, because he took Gunther to the limit in that match. So I'm throwing that idea out there. Gunther versus Karrion Kross. Period. Let's book it. So that being said, I'm out and peace.